Hello and welcome to another Path of Exile video. This is going to be going over the Warden Lightning Strike build that I am considering making probably as like a second or third character, just because I kind of want to play with like the tincture stuff, and I also want to see if barkskin is actually like a usable defensive layer. As you can see, this character's got a 17k fizz hit. The config is set to Guardian / Pinnacle. I have all buffs that I could ever imagine having up active. Obviously, I cannot calculate tinctures right now, so the full DPS is potentially even higher than what it currently is. This is not using Grace or Determination for a defensive layer, so the defenses for like a hardcore build is very weak, but something like this claw here is actually not out of reach with recombinators into the game. So this is simulating the new base crit that you would have, so this critical strike chance modifier just would not exist, and this attack speed as well as this % increased physical damage multiplier is comparable to your like crafted modifiers. So essentially what I would do to get a T1 Fizz and a T1 Lightning onto an item without any use of fractured modifiers or anything, strictly recombinators, is there is a magic or rare weapon with the X added physical and X added lightning damage modifiers that exist in the game. And to do this, you need a topaz flask and a granite flask. So you would get one claw with this modifier, one claw with this modifier. You need to use the augment with I believe it's any rarity topaz. I don't think it requires like a specific rarity. It might be magic, it might not be, I don't know. All it is a transmute. I've used this craft like once or twice in the past. That's just because I dropped a 6-link axe with a T2 Fizz mod. So I just upgraded it into a T1, and then I imprint beasted it and then crafted it that way to make a Bone Zone axe. And then basically what you would do once you get these two bases is you would recombinator it, and then you would basically pray for a % physical to attacks or attack speed. Additionally, you could, if you hit one, you can annul, you can veiled orb. Just understand that like the craft would get much more expensive from there. If you do get like locked suffixes or locked prefixes, you may have to try to annul it or beast remove a prefix, add a suffix type shit. It could happen. Additionally, you could recombinator these two mods and then fracture and try to go from there if you want to get like veiled mods or anything like that onto the claw, or any weapon for that matter. But this is just an example of what I would aim for. This is a pure lightning damage with minimal cold damage. This is just coming from the Abyssal Jewel here. Any roll of cold damage matters, and that is because the Warden, your hits always inflict freeze, shock, and ignite while unbound. However, in order to gain the ability to freeze, you need to deal cold damage. We are inherently gaining the ability to ignite, which gets converted to Scorch from an item called Stormfire. Your lightning damage can ignite. The adds lightning damage against ignited enemies does not count for this build. However, your lightning damage igniting does. So your lightning damage can shock and it can ignite. Now in this build, we are not taking advantage of Oath Spring because I just don't think it's worth it, and I think getting defenses and everything else into the build is much more valuable. I did fart fart around with like Replicate Heat Shiver, Call of the Brotherhood, things like Yoke of Suffering, a bunch of other like random items to try to upgrade the damage, potentially use Trinity. However, all roads led back to mainly focusing on the lightning damage here. As you can see with like regular lightning strike, the damage is super high. This POB is not taking point blank. I know a lot of people, they like taking point blank. I just think that's like number inflating. Like, it's like, is it real that you can shotgun the projectile and make it basically have like 30% more damage? Yeah, but it's overall it ends up being like a very minimal increase. I think, at least, if you can get like different res or something elsewhere, or like get a cluster jewel in and like drop a ton of points on this half of the tree, and you have like enough to get point blank, sure, why not? I guess so. You gotta sacrifice something in order to get something. I don't like making trees around cluster jewels just because they tend to confuse newer players, and having stuff on the tree that you can just take to solve your problems in your build is usually just easier for a newer player to understand and comprehend. Obviously, this is a lot of button mashing. The mana pool is so high so that we can cast when damage taken Sigil of Power. Sigil of Power gives you lightning damage. This simulation is just on one stack of Sigil of Power. If we switch to 4 stacks, the damage goes up. But 4 stacks, we have a mana cost per second of 90 in this burst cycle. So your Sigil of Power will be able to cap out relatively quickly. Sigil of Power starts with 1 stage. It takes the second stage takes absolutely no time, so it's as fast as you can burn your mana, and then from there it is a 1 second duration, so it's around 2.5-3 seconds in order to get Sigil of Power capped out. If Sigil of Power is capped out, our effective hit pool goes up higher, but while mapping, this is never going to be capped out. The base duration means that this is not going to be proccing often, so in terms of utilizing it with a tincture, it's going to be kind of sketchy. That's why having a inflated unreserved mana pool while having this tincture, the first 6 mana burn applied to you have no effect, is kind of required. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to play out with the tincture stuff, but I'm assuming it'll work just fine. And then Enduring Cry, Auto Exertion, Whirling Blades. The Whirling Blades is level 1. So that the mana cost is lower. Leveling up your Whirling Blades only will get you killed to Frizz Reflect in a build like this. Assassin's Mark, Frostblink, Life Tap, Mark on Hit. Vol Haste, this is optional. Molten Shell, cast when damage taken. Life Tap with a War Banner unlinked to the Molten Shell setup because it doesn't need to be. Yep. And then Herald of Purity, Guardian Blessing, Wrath Technology, Precision, level 20, Unbound Avatar, and Barkskin. Obviously, this is a ton of buttons that you would have to be pressing, so if you don't want to run Vol Haste, you don't have to. And if you don't want to run the Herald of Purity, Guardian's Blessing, Wrath stuff, you can literally just drop off Herald of Purity. The Herald of Purity isn't really giving you that much of a damage increase, but having Guardian's Blessing as an aura that affects your Wrath makes your Wrath even stronger and more potent. So if I just disable this and I use a regular Wrath, we're at 22. However, if I Guardian Blessing it, we're at 24, and that is with 4 stages. Obviously, I got rid of the Vol Haste here, so let me re-enable that if I can. There we go. So 27. So if you can always remove things and add things back in depending on the comfort level. I tried to automate as much as I can with this build. Obviously, this is very specific sockets. Of course, if you don't want to use Frostblink, you don't have to. It's just there for mobility. In fact, this can be level 1 if you so choose. You can also use Flame Dash. It doesn't matter. Enough things are life tapped that it's literally just the Sigil of Power. And also you could life tap the Sigil of Power, and then you wouldn't have to worry about your mana preservation issues. Everything else is like, other than these gloves, is just life and res, like pretty bog standard items. This amulet, sure, it's a little out of touch, but it's literally, the main thing is a life mod, the attribute mod, and then crit chance, crit multiplier, and the crafted strength and int. The Stygian Vise is literally just life, armor, and res, so it doesn't even have elemental damage with attack roll. So a lot of stuff is kind of just like what you would expect. This is gained 2 charges when you are hit by an enemy, and taking the Pantheon for freeze immune. Obviously, we start taking things away and your damage starts just falling off like a cliff. However, that is the reality with a lot of these builds. So this is just how I would approach Lightning Strike. I haven't seen all of the different Lightning Strikes that other people are making. However, this is just what I would do to get the most amount of damage out of a Lightning Strike. I don't necessarily know if there are better ways, but this is just what I would do. This video is quite long, but I'll leave the PoE link in the description. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you've seen the light that not every build needs to be a Trinity build too, to have good DPS potential. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.